best in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
We are back. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Monday. That means it's Manipulation Monday. And that means we're on with Andrew Hoffman talking about the latest machinations of the unholy alliance between the mainstream media and the world's central banks and the elite financiers. Andy, how are you?
I'm good. Well, my article for today just came out, and it is Manipulation Monday, and it's called A Day of Manipulative Infamy and Failure, referring, of course, to Friday's fake convoy attack.
Yeah,
news.
What was that about?
Well, look, when it first came out, it looked as fishy as all the other, fake or sort of half-fake events that we see coming out constantly. Today they're talking about another convoy attack somewhere. Don't even know what it is. But the fact is, this article refers not to whether we believe who was behind it, just the fact that the circumstances, the way the markets traded, particularly the gold markets, before and during this, were so similar to the MH17 attack a month ago. It was eerie. In fact, I was reading my article, which was called Coincidence, with a question mark that I put out right after it. And I talked about the fact that every time there's a major dovish event for gold, right before it, you seem to have big smashes, preemptive smashes. And, like we saw right before the MH17, remember, it was just the week after that whole Espirito Santo thing, and then there was $10 billion or $20 billion of naked shorting on the COMEX to push the price down, and also on stuff like this, you tend to see oil get smashed for no reason right before it, those kind of things, and then and then I also wrote what a coincidence that attack happened at the perfect time of day, right at the time, right after the physical market is closed, but right before the cap of last resort for gold, And sure enough, and I have the charts there, gold went right up after that, the MH17, and was stopped at 12 o'clock on the dot. I put the chart for Friday, same exact thing. They happened the exact same time of the day, and we were capped at the exact same time by the exact same algorithm. Just way too much of a coincidence. Oil also had fallen an exact same percentage beforehand. Of course, the Dow was stopped at its cap level down, came back with a dead ringer. But the thing that really is eerie and what makes it so similar is, and I couldn't believe when I was reading, and I have the text in there, so you really got to read this coincidence. What I wrote was, basically, the 10-year yield has been falling, what we call the most damning proof yet of QE failure, which is plunging rates amidst a so-called recovery. And it had just broken below the key 2.5% level. Remember, we wrote 2.6%, enough said. They had already lost that. It had just broken below 2.5%. And then, bam, this MH17 pushed it back, pushed it further. It's almost like it was an excuse. And sure enough, what happened on Friday? They had been holding 2.4 for the past 2 weeks. And at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, it finally broke below that. And then there was all this horrible economic data. So it was down to 2.38. So it finally, definitely broke below it. And then you get this MH17 thing, where this convoy thing, which blew it as low as 2.3. So it's almost the same thing. They're trying to blame every time that they lose, they can't hold on to an interest rate level on these attacks. And here we are Monday, everyone's pretending that it didn't happen. It was truly amazing to watch. And I called it a failure because, gold is still well above its 200-day moving average, almost its 50-day moving average. Silver is way oversold. And again, the whole world is becoming wise to this. It couldn't be more obvious what's going on.
Yeah, it's just remarkable that how can anybody believe anything that they read or see on TV, or how can you believe anything that you hear on the radio? It's just...
Exactly. Remember we talked about just last week the Canadian unemployment number that came out?
That.
Okay. It came out, and I had highlighted just how abysmal it was. It came out as zero, basically. No jobs were created for last month. And in that, I think it included like plus 40,000 part-time jobs and minus 40,000 full-time jobs. And the labor participation rate plunged to new multi-year lows, while the quote unemployment rate went down. I mean, identical to what we have here. And I said, this is what you see throughout the world. So what did the Canadian government do? That wasn't good enough. 2 days later, they came out and said, oh, no, we're sorry. It's not zero. It was plus 30,000, which for an economy which a population the tenth the size of ours, is like a 300,000 job print. They literally just, the numbers aren't good enough. Let's just change them. I mean, this is what we see around the world.
Yeah. And it sure ain't getting better. It looks like, I mean, why even bother reporting it? Why even bother having reporters? Just have bots do it and just say, push the plus button for positive news, push the minus button for negative news, or push the zero for neutral news. You know, that's what it's coming down to.
It's push the plus button for everything. That's, you have the PPC and the central banks behind you. They go up every day. I mean, look at and actually I have read that some of the news services like Reuters will be hiring, I shouldn't say hiring, will be programming bots to write stories about earnings releases based on key buzzwords. So they can write them however they want. I mean, I kid you not. Good thing I'm not a financial analyst anymore. But again, you look at the headlines that come out. I mean, forget the ones in the gold place, which are equally brain dead in our supposed newsletter community. I mean, tell me how you could possibly believe that gold would be down on Thursday and Friday with headlines like this. Again, these are the top stories in Yahoo Finance, which is probably the top mainstream media outlet. Okay, here's Thursday. Asia shares up as investors bank on more stimulus. Asian shares pushed higher Thursday after a flood of soft economic data led investors to wager on a ceaseless fountain of stimulus from major central banks, sending bond yields tumbling across the globe. Gold smashed. Here's Friday. Stocks bonds set for weekly gain on loose policy. European stocks rose on Friday and were on track for their biggest weekly gain since mid-February. Of course, this is before the convoy attack. While German bond yields held near record lows as recent weak data increased expectations for central bank action to lift the economy. Given the recent data flow, I guess some market players consider there was a high probability of QE in Europe. That's from Deutsche Bank, okay? And the best one yet was Friday, coming out of the United States right before. Okay, this is in the middle of the night, just as bond yields were breaking down, okay, below 2.4%. This was before the horrible Empire State Manufacturing report, the horrible industrial production report, the horrible TICS report, the horrible consumer confidence report, the extremely dovish comments from the Minneapolis Fed president. This was before all that came out a few hours later and before the convoy attack. The headline is, I got to get right here with a little drum roll. Come on, here we go. Gold on track for second weekly gain on safe haven demand. So after all the horrible news after that, and potentially an Archduke Ferdinand moment, gold was smashed by $20 and stocks ended the day higher. Or almost. That just shows you how blatantly that this sector is attacked. And again, you look at the what's going on in the physical world, where in China, they have almost no silver inventory left. They've lost a billion ounces, or 90% of their inventory since these attacks started last April. And meanwhile, here we've had more naked shorting than in the history of the COMEX.
Yeah, yeah. It's just it just never ceases to amaze me.
And today it just goes on. Rally in the Dow. Some will say, well, it's relief because there was no attack. Yeah, but the Dow barely went down on Friday. They brought it back with the Hail Mary. Heck, the NASDAQ was up on Friday. And better yet, they're saying, well, it's because Janet Yellen and Mario Draghi are speaking on Friday at the Jackson Hole Symposium, and they're going to say some dovish things. Really? So is that, again, why gold, which was smashed Friday during this false flag attack, is that why it's again down and why stocks are up? I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. And, of course, you look at the 10-year yield, and with all the smoke clear, they can blame whatever they want. 2.38 hasn't been this low since, I think, last year. We're almost down to those, a few more knocks down, and we'll be down to the pre-tapering levels in the ones.
Yeah, it's just, you just shake your head. I mean, it's down to that in Germany now. So it's probably...
Germany, that's right. 0.9.
Yeah. So it's going to get that way here. It's quite obvious. And, just the web of lies and deceit, it's just, you just can't, I don't think Hollywood could come up with, it just reminds me of what Mark Twain said. He said, truth is stranger than fiction. Fiction is limited by the imagination. Truth isn't. And, it's just,
it's this island of lies that I wrote about where the only economic data is the fake data. Between the jobs data, which, heck, even Canada's in on it now. And then these diffusion indices, like I see this morning, it says the NAHB, the National Home Builders, their confidence index rose last month, especially because there was a huge jump in hope, as they call it, or confidence down the road in the Midwest. And I've gone, this is an industry association whose job is to say that everything is good. It's not based on any data. And by the way, we now know the NHB, it was like a year or two ago, had to revise downward all of their prior numbers for sales. They were lying for years about how many sales on the high side, of course. And yet we see last week that the mortgage purchase application index hit a 15-year low. The refinancing index, I don't even know how many years. That doesn't even go back that far. It's so low right now. And the home sales, I think, what were they down? New home sales were down 10 or 15% last month, and housing permits and housing starts plunging, even with the low rates. And yet they're telling us there's confidence. You can't make this stuff up if you try.
Yeah. And we're living in Never Never Land. And when we get back, let's talk about how you get out of Never Never Land, what you do about it, Andy, okay? On the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every day, the Financial Survival Network reaches tens of thousands of listeners and would like to reach thousands more. By adding a video channel and more show hosts, we think we can make that happen. But we need your help. If you're a regular listener of FSN and would like to help, please go to clubfsn.com to donate monthly from $1 to $100. The choice is yours, but every bit counts. There are premiums available for you, but the biggest one by far is you helping FSN get the message out to your friends and family to be prepared, hopeful, and ready. That's what FSN is all about, and that's why you listen. So go to clubfsn.com and help us get the word out before it's too late.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
We're back with Andrew Hoffman. It's Manipulation Monday. Not that it's different than any other day, but it sure does sound good. Andy, so what do you do to get out of Never Never Land? Do you just stop reading? Do you just go into a bubble and forget about it all? But that's really not going to help you or your family, is it? So
No.
What do you do?
Well, no, it's all about due diligence. Saying the point of that Day of Infamy article was, look, I was once a award-winning fundamental analyst. It's what I like to do. And it's not just what I like to do, it's what I need to do to protect myself. You need to do your due diligence. You need to know not only what the good guys are saying, but the bad guys are saying too. You have to get a mosaic of what's going on around the world to make your own decisions, because these are life and death decisions. It's a fact that fiat currency is a Ponzi scheme. It's a fact that it's in its final stages. That's why you're seeing all these crazy things going on in the markets. You're seeing parabolic increases in money printing and debt, social unrest, geopolitical tensions, inflation, you name it. And so you have to be aware of everything. And there are reasons why sometimes you're not quite sure why Reuters, which is supposedly, or Yahoo Finance, they're supposedly reputable, would write such drivel. But then again, sometimes you get drivel from our side too. You really got to find who the good, smart people are and put heavy weight into what they say, but also watch what everyone else is saying for hints and clues about, what's going on behind the scenes.
Hey, and another thing that really helps you figure out and deconstruct the news is Google. When you get that suspect headline, go Google it right away and see all the places where it showed up. And you can also figure out where it came from. And you can see that it's meme generators. That's what I call them. They're generating memes, trying to just get you to stop thinking and just accept. And that's what you have to stop doing. Stop accepting and start thinking for yourself. All right?
Yeah. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when you see this stuff, you see headlines like that and you see how markets react. It's hard not to believe that in some way, shape, or form, this is all connected, and obviously not in a good way.
Yeah. Yep. absolutely. And yeah, and these bots, more and more of the news is getting generated by these bots and the comments on the websites, everything else, Andy. It's just becoming a world of bots. And bots are the antithesis of critical thought. And they fit into this whole thing of manipulating the news, of creating a perception that just isn't true.
Yeah. And then you have, I remember one of my favorite movies is RoboCop, which I'm sure you've seen.
Oh, sure.
Right? And actually, the new RoboCop, the remake, wasn't half bad. I was kind of surprised by it. But, the concept is that eerily, and this was made in the 80s, that Detroit is broke and the government contracts a private company to run it in all ways, manage it, the police, all that.
Sounds like Detroit.
Yeah, and of all places, it happens to be Detroit. And it reminds me over and over again of this company that just came out of nowhere. It's kind of like one of these 21st century evils called Markit, Markit, who out of nowhere all of a sudden is publishing all of these diffusion indices, which I write about constantly. Even the Wall Street banks admit the diffusion indices are complete garbage in every way, shape, or form. And they are manipulated to create numbers on this island of lies, which have no connection with reality. And they just went public, and the stock is a hot stock. And we are just besieged. It used to be there was a couple of economic indicators. Now we are literally besieged. Look at the NASDAQ website by data each day. And most of it is this meaningless stuff. The National Home Builders Confidence Index, all these consumer content, University of Michigan is now selling its consumer confidence index to day traders ahead of time. And this market is everywhere, not just in the States. They publish all the PMI data for Europe and China. It's everywhere where they're just creating this BS data, which is based on nothing. Remember, now you have Canada's rejiggering and putting out data. Remember the PMI or the ISM, which is a government institution, they changed their ISM diffusion index a couple of months ago, twice in one morning. They can't even figure out what until, of course, they finally put out the one that the market wants to see.
Hey, you know what else it reminds me of, Andy? Do you remember the movie with James Caan, Rollerball?
It's like not Rollerball, the roller skating movie.
Yeah, and it's the whole society is dominated by corporations, and they basically sponsor all these rollerball teams, which is like roller derby, except they play to the death. And James Caan is like the star, and they want him to sell out, but he won't. And he's fed up with the whole thing, and he kind of rebels, and they kind of conspire to kill him. But you have to see this movie because it really is. It's so much the world of today. It just is.
Actually, I did see it. I think I was probably 6 years old. And I saw it in the movies. My dad wanted to see it so bad. And then we saw some actual roller derby, but it's like wrestling right now. There's nothing, they're not really real.
Yeah, it's not real, but that was real. They actually killed people in rollerball. And, so it's like it really gets into the whole Romification of the United States. And it gets into like what's happening in Missouri right now. When you get down to it, it's all about that now because the barbarism of the country, all this stuff. And I'm talking to Gerald Salenti after you in another hour. He really gets into that. We're talking about the warriorification of the police. All of this fits into rollerball. Reality television. Yeah.
It's just a moral decline. It's not my personal opinion like I'm so conservative. I'm saying it's quite obvious. I'm not talking about the good old days. It's quite obvious from looking at what's popular these days, from gossip to reality TV to texting to, things that are not productive. They're in many ways they're counterproductive, both intellectually and socially. It's not a subjective opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so it all fits in with the what I would call the destruction of truth of objective news reporting and what you would call the diffusion indices, because it's all about the subjectification of the news, perverting facts to try to put forth a meme or a perception of the way you want things to be perceived, because that makes the job of governing easier, right? Of your leaders.
Of manipulating markets and printing money. I mean, again, this is what I've said forever. All they have left in their arsenal are money printing, market manipulation, and propaganda. I've probably written it 10,000 times. And the propaganda side is starting to fall apart. I mean, people just aren't listening anymore. The fact that they, will smash gold and buy the stock market the second that a news bite comes out doesn't necessarily mean that everyone believes it. That some economic data, some diffusion indices is good, or this or one is bad. I mean, people are getting pretty keen to the reality behind the scenes. It's pretty simple what's going on in the real economy, geopolitics, heck, the physical gold and silver market. So, it's not going to last forever.
Everything. And it's all about the internet shining the light of truth on all this crap. But, just like Zero Hedge, probably yours and mine, one of our favorite sites, got to watch out because every now and then they run stories that aren't true there. Not that they haven't tried, but
I've attacked them many times. I wrote an article years ago called Zero Hedge sucks. Yeah, you, Tyler Durden. And he's clearly banned me. He never will put me on because he used to be much more, he sounded almost like the mainstream about gold. And finally now he's addressed the issue. And I think I had something to do with it. But it's not even just that. Often he'll write stuff about how markets react as if it's the meme, as if it's the truth, when it's garbage.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful what even the good guys are saying.
Yeah, and these guys are definitely into deconstructing the headlines and all that, but they're still getting information from other sources, so they're still subject to getting manipulated, just like you and I. As much as we try to see through, we get fooled. All of us do. And you need to be on the lookout for it, which means don't believe anything you read until you've done a truth test on it, as best as you can. And even then, you still got to be on your lookout. You still got to be on your guard because you just don't know.
Yeah. And a perfect example is this convoy attack. I mean, what do you think really happened? I mean, was it the Ukrainians just trying to stir up Russia? Was it the United States telling Ukraine, let's see if we can get Russia to counter? Was it made up by the Russians to make Ukraine look bad? Was it an accidental attack on their own vehicles? How did it get reported the way it get reported? I mean, I was at the gym when that was going on. Not an hour after it happened, it says, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov to meet Ukrainian Foreign Minister in Berlin on Sunday. This is an hour after it happened. I'm going, really? So the Ukrainian president just put out a press release saying, we destroyed 300 Russian humanitarian tanks. And by the way, we'd like to have meetings on Sunday with you for dinner.
Film at 11. Film at 11.
Stuff up.
Yeah.
And on CNBC, they're flashing that as if, this is good news. You need to buy stocks. And not thinking of how ridiculous the whole thing sounds.
Yeah, it's distressing. And I just remember getting taken in by a story about Bloomberg going to a pizzeria in Brooklyn. It was right after the story about the double gulp, sodas that they were trying to limit your intake, New York City, no more than 16 ounces. And that the pizzeria owner said when Bloomberg ordered a second slice that, no, Mayor, I don't want you getting fat. You got to limit your caloric intake. And it was just such a great story. You wanted it to be true. And it was a scam. And they nailed me on it. And I had to admit that I was wrong, but I wanted that story to be true. And that's what you have to watch out for, because you can get taken. Anyway, and we got to wrap up, but hey, find Andy's commentary along with Bill Halter's must reading at milesfranklin.com. Financial Survival Network. Make sure you go to that site at least one time a day. We've got Stefan, the human aggregator. We got 30 to 70 different articles per day, which is why you spend 10, 15 minutes a day reading on that site. Not to mention our newsletter. It's getting relaunched by the end of this month. It's going to be amazing. And Andy, we'll talk to you next week.
Look forward to it.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every day, the Financial Survival Network reaches tens of thousands of listeners and would like to reach thousands more. By adding a video channel and more show hosts, we think we can make that happen. But we need your help. If you're a regular listener of FSN and would like to help, please go to clubfsn.com to donate monthly from $1 to $100. The choice is yours, but every bit counts. There are premiums available for you, but the biggest one by far is you helping FSN get the message out to your friends and family to be prepared, hopeful, and ready. That's what FSN is all about, and that's why you listen. So go to clubfsn.com and help us get the word out before it's too late.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.